Let's have a look and see what the cannabis stocks are doing. All right, guys, let's look at these cannabis stocks. Wow, they've been absolutely hammered this year. It's been an interesting year for cannabis stocks. You know, we've seen stuff, especially like Tilray. I've got my cannabis watch list here. Just a few in them. I've not got them. There's many more as well. We've talked about these before. But I really wanted to kind of highlight these because next year is going to be interesting for this. This whole ramp up, I mean, that Tilray was kind of exceptional. The exhaustion on that was dramatic. And you can see that was purely emotion. It's not a valuation thing at all. Going from 300 down to 100 in a few days is just pure people trapped long. And, you know, that is the interesting thing about the markets. However, before we look at some of these other stocks and maybe kind of devise a plan of action, the interesting thing about the cannabis industry is it's not quite performed as people have expected. Now, specifically in Canada, I don't know about other areas, but I read this article and it was super interesting that a lot of the growers have got a lot of product left. They're not selling as much as they thought. Their retail outlets are very limited. They've not had many retail outlets. Of course, we've got the medicinal and recreational side of things as well. But as a brief overview, what seems to be happening is people are still buying it on the black market. Now, I guess the reason for that is that it's cheaper and also the availability. You know, people who are cannabis users are probably used to buying it from someone they know and they give them a call and they go and collect it or whatever it is. Now, that, and if it's cheaper, they're probably happy doing that rather than going to a retail shop paying more of a premium for it. And I suspect as well, with cannabis specifically, there's probably no danger of the supply chain being contaminated, unlike other drugs where there's the danger of some sort of contamination with another product to kind of increase the weight. So I guess for most people that's fine, and they're happy to do that. And also hasn't really brought in these new people, new smokers of cannabis, consumers of THC as they've expected. Now we'll see what happens when they bring out these drinks in 2020. CGC, I think it's Canopy Growth, who have had the investment from the drinks makers who are going to put THC, the kind of active ingredient cannabis, into drinks and no alcohol. So that'll be interesting. But they are panicking because they know that a lot of millennials and a lot of younger people as well are not drinking so much. So they've kind of looked to cannabis and thought, is this going to be it? So it might not be it. This is where it gets interesting. It might not be it. You know, we might not have a big boom in cannabis. Yes, the medicinal side of it seems to be going well, and that may well be the angle of attack. The companies that have more exposure to the medicinal side of it, that seems to be much more proven now, much more regulated. But the recreational side of it, you know, maybe we're not going to have a country full of people smoking weed all day long, which is probably a good thing, to be fair, for productivity. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the charts we've got. So weed obviously is Canopy Growth, but that's on a different exchange. Let's look at this one, CJC, here. This is probably, again, the research needs to be done on these guys because, you know, there's lots of variables with this. Tilray was its own story. It was a ramp up based on exhaustion. It's come back down. It's now the lowest it's ever been. $16, the lowest it's ever been. Market cap still 1.6 billion. You know, you've got to do a little bit of homework on this and see. I'm not saying to kind of be true fundamental investor on this, but see how much of a premium you're paying based on how much they're earning. This could have a long way to go before it finds a level. You might find that other ones are slightly better. This is a 6 billion market cap. But again, what are they doing to justify that? Is this fair for it within reason? You know, I'm not a big fan of kind of using valuations, but sometimes when, you know, they're earning enough to make it valued at, say, 100 million, it's trading at 6 billion, it's too much. You know, the shine's come off these already. There's no hype with them. If you trade the hype, it was a trade only, and many people were aware of that. Anyone who's investing in these now is either consigned to the fact that, hey, I'll have to wait it out, or I don't think they're super keen to be adding more, that's for sure, because we're not sure about what's happening to the industry. So from a trader's perspective, what do we do? So we can have a few on our watch list. I've got Tilray, I've got Canopy Growth, I've got Aurora Cannabis as well, which is another one worth having on the watch list, and of course the ETF, which is MJ. So what I think will happen with these is this, and on my long-term thesis, I'm just going to be keeping my eye on these, and whether they come back into trading venue or not, who knows, or trading opportunity or not, is that many times you'll get this drive lower, and often they'll find a base, but they're going to find a base for a few months. They start to lift up, maybe that one more look lower, and then what tends to happen is you get some sort of good news, and the good news normally would be sold off, as you see here with this Aurora Cannabis, some sort of good news here, and then eventually it just gets sold off because investors are fed up. They're just seeing that as an opportunity to get out. They're like, you know what, I've had enough of this thing. Whereas when we get to a certain low point, all those investors that were in from these highs will be long gone. And so you'll have a fresh bunch of investors who are in looking for a long-term trend to change, looking for a trend in consumers to change, depending on which cannabis stock you're trading. And so that it will start to trade a little bit differently. It'll start to find a bit of a floor, start to see a little bit of a change. Listen, this is gone now. None of the traders are trading this. No one's really super interested in this. I'm sure there's still some, but compared to Tilray back in the day when it was spiking, even this day, that was all the traders were on top of this. Everyone was trading this from the back end on the short side, from the front end. That's all gone now. And so it's calmed down a bit. It's become more of a valuation play. So from a technical perspective, this might be this kind of thing we see. The basing, they tend to push to lows, and then some kind of good news catalyst, which can then be worked off for a long position and with a very kind of framed trade. It's hard to frame the trade on this basing, because very often we get a basing like this, and then it goes lower, and so you end up getting stopped out. Whereas if you're a bit late, but perhaps there's a catalyst that's like, hey, things are picking up, we've got more stores, we've got whatever it may be, we haven't got so much inventory, whatever the story may be behind it, that might be then the catalyst to initiate the trade for a kind of multiple month recovery. But it's going to depend on the stock, it's going to depend on the company, it's going to depend on the story. But super interesting thing to watch for next year, and ones to watch, major ones to watch are definitely your MJ, because that's the ETF, so you see a broad sentiment with that. Tilray, because that was the poster child for the whole thing. Canopy Growth, Cron not so much, but if you want to watch four, I'd say MJ, Tilray, Canopy Growth, and Aurora Cannabis. There are others out there, I've missed some, I know, but a good kind of basket to have on a watch list to see what happens to the cannabis industry next year.